What's up, my friend? Welcome to the Finding Direction podcast. My name is Stu Massengill, and I'm here every single week to bring you a passionate guest or message dedicated to helping you find your purpose so that you can live a life full of passion, fulfillment, and happiness. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for hanging out with me, and let's dive in. What's up, my friend? Welcome to episode 321 on the podcast. I am so unbelievably excited for you to dive into this episode. There is so much value and wisdom and just unbelievable juiciness you're going to get as we bring you one of our final guest episodes of 2022. And the guy I'm going to be sitting down with, his name is Cole Rogers, and he's the founder of School of Man. It's an organization that builds real men through raw and real vulnerability in order to crack the code to have it all. He is a husband, he is a father of two, and his goal is to leave people better after having an interaction with them. And I absolutely promise you that he is going to deliver for you on that promise on this episode. A few of the things that we dive into is how do you create an ethos for your life? This is something we dive into right away, and you're going to get so much from it. And we also talk about why you should be unreasonable with what you want in your life and why you need to stop being reasonable. That you do this, it will change so many things in your life. We get to that quick as well. And then we also talk about how to start being vulnerable in your life, tactical ways to do it, and how to ultimately turn it into a superpower in your life. I know I said it a few times. I'm going to say it again, but you are in for a treat as you sit in on this conversation with Cole. He is a man of so much wisdom, so many wise words, so many lessons throughout the journey that he's gone through his life, and he's going to pack it together for all of you in just the next 30, 40 minutes on this episode. So again, buckle your seatbelt, pull your socks on, and get ready for this episode. Here we go. Cole Rogers, welcome to the show, man.
What's up, brother? So grateful to be here with you.
Yeah, me too, man. And I love right off the bat just your very cool, calm, down to earth demeanor. So I'm excited for our conversation today. just to keep it raw and real. And as we kick this thing off, I'd love it if you could give our listener just a little bit of an inside scoop as far as like who's Cole Rogers, what do you do? Just kind of give us the inside scoop on who are you?
Man, what I would love to do is start off with my ethos, and I think that's where we can unpack really my story, why I was put on this earth, because you don't come to this ethos just out of thin air. And so let's start off there. I think that will give. Yeah.
Before you give the ethos, can you give a breakdown of the definition of an ethos and then go into it?
Yeah. So in Latin words, or in Latin terms, extonere means to leave someone thunderstruck. So ethos, like you see on the bottle of water, like ethos, the bottle of waters that you see, it's all about enthusiasm. So that dates all the way back to Greek mythology. And an ethos is a shoreline, and you don't just by chance arrive at a shoreline. No, you go through a process to actually find exactly what your shoreline is. It's your constitution, and it's not one of those that you just manufacture just artificially. It is one of those that you build with your own hands, your own spirit. You build through pain, which eventually equates to your purpose, because the most painful times in our life are honestly the most beautiful times in our life. And that's where you're going to really hear. What you're going to really hear is my emotion inside of the ethos. Ethos equals enthusiasm, and it comes from my life, and it really gives you a great insight on how I found my direction. Because without it, honestly, I was aimlessly walking or just really checking the boxes, however you want to look at that. Right. But once you dive into it, and once I really unpack it, and we can work through it, and it's going to really tie into my story for your listeners, it'll make sense on what an ethos truly is. It's not a mission statement that you see on a wall that no one knows, or a vision statement that no one knows, or a value statement at a corporation. No, this is your living, breathing constitution. So hopefully that's what makes
totally
sense.
Breaks it down.
So we'll start off with the first paragraph. As a man, I will treat every day as it is my last. I will take on the everyday responsibilities as a man with a warrior mentality. I will not exist. I will live. I'm loyal to God, myself, my family, my brothers, and my wife. And I'll give my all to bettering myself daily. I'm to be the man that Ashley dreams of at night but gets to wake up to in the morning. I'm to be the hero and the father that my children need and the man they desire me to be. I'm a fierce and special breed of brother to my team. I'm never backing down as life throws its spears at me. Instead, I view the spears as an opportunity to grow and help others with. I have found my why. I'm grounded in my purpose. I'm not lighthearted. I'm lionhearted. I'm secure enough to show the world my flaws, but fierce enough to attack them head on. And when I make a mistake, because I'm perfectly flawed, I'll own that mistake and suffer the consequences like a man. I have integrity in every aspect of my life and the humility to not boast about it. I know who I am, and I'm in control of where my life's journey has taken me. I have earned my team's ethos, and I push towards earning it every single day, and I'm actively conquering my core 5. Live, love, learn, lead, and legacy while helping others do the same. I'm a leader, whether it be one of many. I'm called to lead. I've learned to hold others lovingly accountable like a true leader would. My spirit is unshakable. My mind is unbreakable. When you look inside this man's soul, you'll see a warrior phoenix, one with fire in his eyes and ashes dripping from my wings of rebirth, because I'm reborn daily due to the 1-second contract I have signed and on. I'm always pushing forward. I'm never looking back. I take my why, my leadership abilities, my experiences, and I aggressively help others be free the way I am. I've been blessed with so many gifts that I will share with this world. I will never use those for selfish gain. Instead, I will share them with this world to help each person get better. And I understand by helping one, I can help change the world one life at a time. That's an ethos. That's not something. Yeah. So that's not something that you just come up with just out of the blue. That's, that's something that I honestly
years put into that.
Yeah. I mean, it is
decades, we could say.
Yeah, and I think it really goes hand in hand with finding direction, and that's what my direction is. So whenever I'm called, and like maybe you're out, I don't know, with some friends, or maybe you're on a business trip, and the integrity piece, like I have integrity in every aspect of my life and humility to not boast about it. What that basically is, like if I'm out on a business trip, is that I'm going to do the things, that are right by my family. I do today what others want so I can do tomorrow what others can't. Right. I'm not going to cut corners. I'm not going to say because I'm on the road, I want to have X amount of drinks and, just be a lesser version of myself, because we fight how we train. But how the first paragraph starts out with is that, and this really goes into your audience just speaking, we're all going to die. I mean, it's a Stoic philosophy. Memento mori is meditate on your mortality, is that the minute that we can embrace the art of living versus existing is the minute that you truly find out why you were created and your purpose. It's similar to, Chris Hemsworth has come out with Limitless on the National Geographic. It's a phenomenal 6-part docuseries on really taking you from the art of existing to living, and from fasting to cryotherapy, and I'm into all that stuff too. But the very last episode's on acceptance, and that is a huge deal. Like, and it's on the acceptance of like, hey, we're not going to be here forever. And the quicker you can arrive to like, hey, this is why I was put on this earth, the quicker life's going to produce abundance and fulfillment to you. And that's just the truth. I mean, it's one of those things that it goes back to finding your direction, if you will. Yeah. So
love it. And it's interesting when I hear you say that, I almost see it as it's like I love you said, it's the constitution that you have with yourself, right? So it dictates everything you're doing. It's like your guiding principles really for your life. And so this may not be an answer we could fully dive into on, a podcast, but I'm curious, how does someone start building an ethos for their own life? And before you answer, it's interesting. Just the last couple of days, I've been spending a lot of time myself diving into creating my ultimate vision for my life.
Sure.
Because it's something like you have that ethos. That's what you wake up in the morning and you're charged because you go, this is my purpose. This is why I'm here. This is my constitution. I love how you said the constitution with yourself. And I think it's so powerful that when you have an ethos, when you have a vision, when you have something for your life that's like these guiding principles for your life, it can create so much fuel and charge in your life that amplifies everything in your life. So what would you say is like a few things, and maybe you give us the whole package, I don't know, but what are a few things someone listening to this could do to start at least the process of creating an ethos for their life?
Well, it goes back to what George Bernard Shaw has famously said: a reasonable man adapts to the world, an unreasonable man makes the world adapt to him. Therefore, all progress lies on the unreasonable man. And when you unpack that quote, which is a very powerful one, I mean, that's been around for almost over a century, if you will.
Hmm.
It's you have to become unreasonable with what you want in your life.
Amen to
Corporate
that.
America, yeah, corporate America has done a very good job of making sure that you stay normal. And what that basically means is in our culture in America, all the competition is in the land of average, and all that competition is in the land of normal. You want to be a 1% man, a 1% woman, a 1% leader. You want to not take the easy path, but the hard path. And I'm not saying you got to do the things that David Goggins does, or those that have become famous on YouTube by any stretch. Sure, that's inspirational, but it's just like I tell my men in the School of Man: quit watching the YouTube video and become the YouTube video. And but that's a 99% of this world, just to be frank, want to be an employee. They want to collect a paycheck. They want to have a salary. The 1% want to be creators. They want to be developers. They want to put a dent in the universe. So I say all that because where you really start is becoming unreasonable with your life, and really start identifying exactly what you are doing and who you are surrounding yourself with, because your network determines your net worth. Early on in my 20s, I mean, I started out in the professional world at 21, and the world of sales, making $18,000 a year. I made $42,000 my first year. So I saw the opportunity to expand oneself and get paid into doing that while helping other people. And that's why that's how I'm designed, is to be a coach, to help others realize their fullest potential, or help them fit their dream inside the dream, if you will. As time went on, I got caught up in the game. And as men, we have been trained. And for all of us as adults, let me back up. We're all deteriorated children. That's the number one thing we have to understand. And, I kind of get deep with these conversations, but this goes back into my story. But as a man, you're really taught to, as a young age, to benchmark yourself on athletics, the woman you date, how pretty she is, money, status, and power. And when you get out into the world and you're an alpha, I'm an alpha, engineered to hit goals and to be a hard charger, you can quickly focus on the things that are not worthy. And so with that being said, I started adapting to the world. Right. And yes, money went with me. It grew. I was single. I would not let anybody get close to me from a dating perspective, because I got hurt when I was 18. And so that whole 6 years until I turned 27, 28, when I got married, I mean, that was a very much rite of passage for me, because I've learned a lot. But then I brought in a lot of baggage into my marriage. Yeah. And I was trying to climb the corporate ladder. Then I said, you know what? I'm not doing this political crap. I'm going to set out on my own course. Well, what ended up happening, I'll keep the story short for timing purposes, is at 27, my wife and I get married. My daughter flatlines on the table when she was born a year later. I ended up taking a pay cut from 6 figures to 60,000. And then a year later, it went to zero. And because I was working on commissions, building a business, and I have a wife, new kid, $25,000 in healthcare debt, and man, all I knew what to do is crank up the volume. And meaning, like, hey, I'm just going to work my ass off. That's, I've got to provide for my family. My daughter just flatlined. They brought her back. I almost lost my wife. You think that would wake me up, but at 27, 28, I am just trying to figure out how to pay my mortgage at that point. Not pour into my wife, pour on my daughter. And then 12 months after that, my son Landon was born. So the first 5 years of my marriage, man, I was, let's just put it to you this way. I was constantly focusing on the wrong things, but I had to go through that to realize my future self and where that constitution, AKA ethos, comes from. Yeah. And then 5 years later, I ended up in San Diego going through Hell Week as a civilian. And graduated from Hell Week as a civilian in Coronado area. But one of my teammates died at my feet, and that's what woke me up. And in that 5 years, I created a multi-million-dollar business from zero. And it's not one of those multi-million-dollar shams that you see on Instagram that people are posting. But no, it was sweat, equity, growth, but I lost my family along the way. Yeah. I also brought in a habit of Adderall, because when I was going through college, that started hitting, and
Right.
we were chewing Adderall like it was Skittles to study, to party, and everything else. I hid a lot of that from my wife. I did not like the man that I saw in the mirror, even though on paper, super successful.
Right. Crushing it.
By Instagram filters standards, like that's the dude, man. Like he's the one that is, doing all the right things. He took something from zero, grew it to seven figures, got a beautiful wife, two kids. I was not vulnerable by any stretch. I was not raw and real. I just really got tired of the bullshit. Excuse my language.
No, all good.
And then when my teammate died, it really woke me up how lonely I was. And a Christian radio show asked me to come on and tell my story in full. So I did. I told it in full, like a long form podcast. And the only person that had not heard it was my wife. And we've been in therapy for 2 years.
Dang.
She calls me. She said, I'm done. Strike three. And we went to see JC McDaniel again. She's crying again on the couch. And I was like, you know what? At this point, I've got to become an unreasonable man. I'm about to lose everything that I've been working my ass off for.
Yeah.
And what I turned around and looked was, number one, and this is how I found direction, right?
Yeah.
Number one was I didn't really have anybody that was squaring me up. I didn't have a mission-focused group of men that were purely focused on the worthy of bettering themselves, on bettering their families, but had a very high standard of accountability. I see men's groups all across this country, and Little Rock to San Diego, it doesn't matter. Right. And people are staying the same. It has been around for thousands of years, and it's time to disrupt the market and do it the right way, because men are starving. Men are starving to be better than they were yesterday. And I just firmly believe that, because that's where I was. The only way I was going to change my family dynamic and my dynamic was through myself and surrounding myself with better people and building a process. So School of Man, which is not what it was called. It was not a business idea. It was basically something I had
to do to find your direction.
Yeah. So I had to build my environment. I had to build my environment, and it became a grassroots movement, which now we've got thousands upon men across the world in it. So when I say finding direction, when if someone's on Instagram saying, hey, let me help you find your why or whatever it is, always go back to the who. The who is greater than the how, and the who is always connected to the why. That's where you have to go back to. And the first step is being that unreasonable person, saying, this is what I'm going to do. This is why I'm going to do it. And this is who it's going to impact. Once I figure that stuff out, the how takes care of itself.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so powerful. And I love the idea of being unreasonable. Like, even just the last couple of days, I was saying I was diving into some of the vision stuff for life. And it is so interesting that most people are not, like, most people are reasonable with their life. They're, well, I could do this. I guess I can achieve this. I guess that's okay if I do this. But if you really want to live an incredible life, you have to say, like, excuse my French, but like, fuck what is reasonable. Like, what do I actually desire and want in my life? And it's so interesting that when you create a vision or an ethos that is unreasonable, there's a part of you, again, that gets this energy from saying, like, wow, that actually excites me. Because when we create a vision or something or an ethos for our life that's reasonable, like, it doesn't get you out of the bed in the morning. You're like, well,
100%.
Okay, well, I want to make X amount, and that doesn't really excite me. I want to do this, and it doesn't really excite me. Then you end up going through this life and just sort of drifting and wandering and existing and not really living. Versus if you're willing to say, I want something that's unreasonable, that's what gets the spark back in your life. And so I would just say, for our listener, if you take one nugget from this piece right now, is ask yourself, what's the unreasonable thing that you really want in your life and that you deserve in your life? And get clear on that. Spend some time, spend a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, spend a few days and really get clear on what is the unreasonable thing that you want. And when you do it, just like you said, understand what's the unreasonable thing. Then the second place you go is, why do you actually want that thing? Right. And then if you start to understand why you want it, now it gives you the fuel to, even when times get hard, even when things get scary, you're still going to pick up and keep moving.
Well, and that's a good point that you just brought up, is that you fight how you train. And I'll give another little glimpse into my story. As I was going through my own personal transformation process, I was called a woo-woo hippie. I was called, I'm from Central Arkansas. So keep that in mind, right? So what I was doing between, it's my Sweat Connect growth formula. Yeah, everybody at the time was doing CrossFit and all that type of stuff, but the connection and growth are very important to me. Like, there's a lot of people that hide behind barbells. There's a guy that can go in and go crush a workout, but then all of a sudden with his gallon jug walks out to his car and it's duct taped together and he doesn't have a dime to his name.
Yeah.
There's plenty of that. Or on the flip side, you can walk into a boardroom and, yeah, dude, you got all the money in the world, but you're a fat slob and I don't respect that. And you're never home with your kids. So to become a 1% man, you got to be unreasonable. When I was first married, like, I like playing basketball. I like playing ball. I played a lot of sports, played a lot of basketball through college. I was still playing ball up until I was 27, then blew out my Achilles. So you wrap your identity up into a lot of things in your own life. And I firmly believe that identity change is the greatest gift you can give yourself in the world. And what I mean by that is always reverse engineering back from a future self and shaking your former self's hand. Well, it was almost a 2 to 3 year process through 2 surgeries, almost lost my right leg due to staph infection. And it took me a while to get back to even developing a belief system that, hey, I could run again. And then when I came to San Diego and Encinitas, California, and I ran my first mile with a Navy SEAL right beside me and a mentor of mine on my left, the greatest thing happened. It unlocked the belief system in myself again, saying that I believe in me. And I will never forget looking at my mentor, and he had just ran like 4 miles. And I said, dude, I said, man, that's awesome. I was like, I can't wait to get there. He said, you can do it. You can do it right now. And the body shows us so much on how we can tap into your mind and your heart on what you're truly capable of. Fast forward 2 years, I put something that was unreasonable, going through Hell Week as a civilian.
Yeah.
That forced to function me, Stu, to recreate myself, to reinvent myself, to do something that scares the hell out of me. If you're not doing things that get your heart rate up, you're not truly living. You're just a reasonable person. I'll put it off until tomorrow. It's kind of like it was an interview that Jerry Seinfeld did early 90s with David Letterman. And he said, I think it's kind of funny. Some of these commercials that I'm seeing, like on furniture, hey, you don't have to pay until June. And I bought it in July. You get 6 months, no payment. And so the person that buys it says, oh, man, I'll have the money come June. And then come June, they don't have the money.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So what I mean by that is like I force function myself and then bet on myself, knowing that I had to deliver for my family, all this stuff that was going on behind the scenes. I'm doing therapy. I'm getting into deep meditation and the journaling aspect, getting to know myself. That's the greatest gift we can give ourselves. Because if I didn't, not only was I going to lose the things that mattered most in my life, that self-worth, that is our greatest currency, was constantly going lower and lower and lower and lower. And I was seeking other people's validation just to get it up. But that's just like a hit. That's like that's just a drug that's never going to be there long term. And that's what that process helped me create myself into a new man. And then guess what? It's funny how life works. Teammate dies, radio show happens. Oh, Cole, you're not really focusing on the things that matter most. I hit great income, bank accounts full. She's taking care. I'm doing all the right things, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes we mistake movement with progress. And so, that's really where direction is going to come from as you walk what I like to call, and we like to call in the SOM School of Man, the path. And because you're going to, every person arrives at their current level of consciousness, and you have to be open. And that's the thing. You got to be accepting. You got to get punched in the mouth. You have to say, it's like I told you before we started. It's rained here in Arkansas for almost 3 weeks. It's sun is shining, it's beautiful. It makes you respect the blue skies.
Yeah, true that.
That's life. That's life.
Yeah.
And so those are all the things that go into, I mean, it's deep, but I wish I could give you a 5-part formula, but it's going to start off with being unreasonable, if you will.
Yeah. No, I love it. And so it's interesting as you look at like the journey of your life, it seems like there was almost, I'm sure there's more than 2 different parts of your life, but I'm just going to call it 2. Where it's like, if we look at 2 large parts, the first part was kind of like finding yourself, going through all these different things. Like you said, you're 27, you get married, you're focused on the business, you have Adderall that starts happening a little bit too much. You are going through all these things. And then something eventually snapped, right? Whether it was your daughter flatlining on the table, whether it was your basically brother dying at your feet.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, then you started to snap into the person that I'm talking to today, who's living this ethos that you kicked today off with. And I'm curious, what would you say are the biggest 2 or 3 lessons you learned from that first part of your story that are something that you live every single day? And something that maybe our listener can start to implement.
It's a great question. As many podcasts that I've been fortunate to be on, this is the question I've not been asked yet. So that I love this. The number one lesson that I learned is vulnerability is a superpower. It's not just a book you read. It has to be practiced. You can go read Brene Brown's book or any other book on vulnerability or the mask of masculinity. You can read all this stuff.
Yeah.
But unless it's put into practice, all you're doing is you are mistaking movement with progress, or as Marie Forleo says, insight is worthless without action. So what I really learned in the first part was you as a man, as a woman, are perfectly flawed. It's okay. I grew up in Arkansas and I grew up traditional Catholic. So the word sin is thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of my upbringing, so I don't want to get that mistaken. However, I think we set a lot of people up for failure to keep them stuck in their past. Like I just do. I'm not the 18-year-old Cole. I'm not the 25-year-old Cole. I'm not the 35-year young Cole. As we speak, the past is happening. So the minute that I realize, it's like, you know what, quit. You have an internal temperature. Number one, you got to liberate yourself. So that's going to require you actually raising your hand, which I always struggled with as a kid, of asking for help.
Yeah.
You're going to have to use your vulnerability as a superpower. And it's going to feel unnatural at first, but that's what growth is. And
so
go ahead.
How would you say you use vulnerability, or like practice vulnerability, or implement that into your life? Because I think a lot of the time, we do hear like vulnerability is this incredible thing you can do in your life, but I don't think, and maybe I just missed this podcast episode from someone else, but it's like, I don't think people give as many things as like, here's how you actually do it. So like, let's say someone listening to this is like, okay, I buy it, Cole. Like, I know I need to be more vulnerable. How do I do this?
It's easy. So if you go back to my ethos, as a man, I will make a mistake. I will own that mistake. And then I will suffer the consequences as a man. All right. So that's a snippet. Another piece of it is I'm not a lighthearted man. I'm a lion-hearted man. It's another snippet. I know who I am and I'm in control of where my life's taking me. None of this is for me to set myself up for failure. But what it's doing is a call of action to say the number one thing is, and it goes back to just simply raising your hand. I mean, let me just talk about a tactic, and I'll just use it as a real life tactic. So I had my team in a meeting yesterday, and we had almost a 4-hour meeting. No one does well with 4-hour meetings, not me in particular. So we had 2 separate meetings, 2 hours. The second meeting I was running was for 2 hours with my team. Their energy follows my energy, plain and simple.
Yeah.
And you know how team dynamics work. If you're not dealing with good, healthy conflict, your team's never going to come together. But that starts with vulnerability. That's the base of the pyramid. Well, the meeting I felt did not go like I wanted it to go from an energy level. I was really intense. I've got dragon energy. That's what my closest network calls me. He's like, hey, brother, your dragon energy is on a 10 right now. Like, I can get going, man. I can get going. And so what I decided to do is take the evening just to collect my thoughts and journal about it. And in fact, my kids had their Christmas program last night, and I was so lost in thought, and this is typically not me anymore. And I was so focused on the meeting and debriefing the meeting and certain tension in the meeting with certain teammates, etc. This morning, I woke up, and the first thing I did is I went to my battle guide, which is a system that I created, and a lot of men take advantage of it. And I specifically went to the battle guide and I asked myself questions just with myself. It doesn't have to be on a YouTube video. It doesn't have to be on a podcast. It doesn't have to be even public. So the first step as we walk through vulnerability to me is asking yourself quality questions and then answering them with quality truth. I didn't make a mistake yesterday. We all grew. But what it does is it makes me take extreme ownership because I feel something inside of my soul that I need to address, because if we push that stuff down, it comes out in different ways. It just does. So the first thing I did,
those questions.
Yeah, so I'm about to read them to you out of my guide. So I was totally disconnected from my family last night because I could only think about the team meeting. That's not okay. I will never do that again. So that's how I started off this morning. And the first question I said, Cole, do you feel that the meeting went well? And I answered, I said, yes, but I did not make eye contact with certain people, and they're not getting their due and not being heard in full. I feel, and fill in the blank, does not care for certain people, and we're pushing them too hard and not giving them the space to grow. That's on me, and that's on me getting better as their leader. Second, where do you feel you did well? Because that's another thing that people have to remind themselves on. We have been trained to look at what we don't do well. Hey, you got 17 out of 20 questions right, but we want to focus on the 3 first. You know what I mean? Totally. So what I like to do is say, hey, always measure backwards from your progress. So that's where I started, is like, what do you feel like you did well? And where do you feel like you need to grow? Third, personally, why was your energy on a level 10 yesterday? I'm being vulnerable with myself. Well, I was in a fast yesterday. I did sprint work yesterday morning. No excuses, right? Yeah. This is the why. Cole, next time you need to eat lunch, and if you're in a 4-day meeting. And then it's just all in all, and I'm not reading the whole thing because there's some personal stuff there. Where do you go from here, Cole? And I just write to myself, and I'm always constantly writing letters to myself. So when I talk about vulnerability being a superpower, that's what has helped me, is asking myself questions, but you better deal in the hard truth when you back it up and have something to go with it. So what did I do after that? Called a meeting for coffee this morning. We cried together. We worked through it together. I empowered that person. I admitted, hey, look, extreme ownership. Sometimes you got to sacrifice yourself for the greater good. Yeah. I don't want yes men and women around me. Punch me in the mouth. Leadership, I don't believe in the titles for leaders. It's earned. You are born to lead through the trials and fires, and then getting yourself to that place to where you can honestly have these honest conversations, not just with yourself, but with your team. And that led to rebirth, reinvention. And so that's what I mean when I say vulnerability from a tactic perspective. The most simplest thing you can do from an awareness, and that's what we teach in our freshman phase in School of Man, is by having that conversation with yourself. You don't have to make it public. You can work through it and ask yourself the appropriate questions, but you just got to answer it. And that will help you with your constitution as you continue to build it. And that's what helps me in my ethos, is I say it to myself and recite to myself, like, hey, brother, you got to honor that. Do the work. Nothing works unless you do the work.
Yeah, I love it. And it's a beautiful way to break down vulnerability as well, where I think sometimes we associate vulnerability with, okay, I need to go share this with my best friend, or I need to go talk to a therapist or something. But I love how you said it's like, just talk to yourself. Like, you ask yourself powerful questions, like you said, unbelievable answers come out. And it's interesting when you write, they've done studies that show it actually helps you tap into some of your unconscious
Yes, your
patterns and
subconscious
thoughts as well.
100%.
So it really does pull it out. And then I love the second part, which I want to make sure people catch you on it, is once you're vulnerable with yourself, go do something with it. Don't just sit there and say, okay, this is what I'm vulnerable about. Like, do something to improve the quality of your life after you've been raw and real with yourself. And that's how you're ultimately going to get to a better place.
Yeah, I think that social media is, as there's pros and there's cons, right? I think that a lot of people get caught up in living someone else's life versus living their own. And Gary Vee kind of talks about this too,
Yeah.
that you're looking at someone else's stories on Instagram, or you're watching a TikTok all day. I don't know what it is. I'm not big into social media.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, quit putting a filter or a lens on your own life. And just all you have to do is take 15 minutes and for things to work, you got to do the work.
Yeah.
And remind yourself that, hey, no one else is responsible for my results but me. And it doesn't mean you have to go to social media and announce to the world, like, hey guys, I've been doing this, that, and the other. Or you got to have this movie made out of your story. Again, I said in a meeting yesterday where a guy's daughter is totally disabled and lives in a home, and he has so much courage to say, you know what, this has happened for us, not to us. I'm like, holy shit. Like, I mean, perspective, right? Perspective. That's a vulnerable statement in and of itself. I just think that, I guess what I'm getting back to on the social media piece is we care too much what others think. We care too much on how many hearts or comments or likes we get. Disconnect and connect with yourself and do old school stuff that's been around for thousands of years that will never be defeated. Yeah. And Father Time is undefeated too. So push back on Father Time and work on the things that matter most right now. And that's just what's really key with me. Yeah. And that's that's another piece of vulnerability. So it's not always crying. It's not always raw and real. It's just having a truthful and honest conversation with yourself while not living in the past. Our past is not a home to be lived in. That's just how I see things.
Beautiful, man. Cole, you are a man of wise words. It's been such a joy to have this conversation with you today. I really enjoy all the value you brought and insights and sharing your life. And I'm curious for our listener, if they want to hang out with you, spend more time with you and just kind of be part of your world, where's the best place for them to find you?
Find me where I'm posting a ton right now is on LinkedIn in the professional circles. So LinkedIn, of course, Instagram, Facebook, at Cole Rogers, that's the handle there. If you want to get involved in School of Man, open enrollment starts soon. It is a self-paced program with freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior level phases that focuses on awareness, growth, and implementation. It's phenomenal what we have built for men to better themselves. And then you can put yourself in a network that will 10x your net worth. So there's that opportunity. We've got trainings going on all the time in that aspect. But look, if you ever want to just connect with me, just shoot me an email, Cole@schoolofman.live, and I respond to every one of them. God put me on this earth to leave people better than I found them. And if anything resonated with you, feel free to reach out. I will be happy to help you.
Love it. Amazing. So last question I have for you.
Yeah,
question we ask every guest, because we, again, want to help people find direction, but believe in doing it through action, is what would you say is one thing our listener right now can do in the next 24 to 48 hours to start finding direction in their life?
One thing. I like the one thing question. And here's my answer. Take pen to paper. I know it's a simple but yet profound answer. I'm not asking you to go climb Mount Everest. I'm not asking you to go do 1,000 pull-ups. I'm not asking you. Take pen to paper and embrace silence for 1 hour and contemplate your life. That's what I want you to do. I don't need you doing anything big, grandiose, or anything like that. Just like I did this morning from 5 a.m. to 6:30, I was deep meditation, pen and paper, and I just sit there. No social media, nothing. So disconnect to get connected. That's my words of wisdom for today.
Let's go. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Cole, again for being here. For anyone who's, still listening with us, go listen to this again. Listen to it 2, 3, 4 times. There was so much wisdom and just so many beautiful things in this episode I think our listener can take, and so many different parts they could use to change the quality and improve the quality of their life. So thank you again so much for being here, Cole.
Extremely grateful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Congratulations, my friend, on crushing it through another episode here on Finding Direction. Make sure you give yourself a pat on the back, a round of applause, because you are one of the few who is not willing to settle for less than a life that lights up your soul, and that is absolutely something worth celebrating. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode with Cole. I hope you got so many nuggets and wisdom and insights. And more importantly, I hope you go execute on some of the things that Cole spoke about, whether it's getting unreasonable with what you really want in your life, whether it's getting clear on your ethos, whether it's taking that hour to sit down and really ask yourself some questions and sit with yourself and get to know yourself and be honest with yourself. I hope you take something from this episode, and I hope you go execute on it in your life. If you're enjoying this, I would ask you, please leave us a review on iTunes and just let me know what was the biggest takeaway you got from this show. You can go on iTunes. It takes 30 seconds. I would be so grateful because it's how we make the show better for you. And if you're enjoying it, make sure that you send it to a friend. All right, we will see you on the show next time. If you don't feel like stopping, don't feel like you need to go anywhere, I have another episode coming up right after this. You can dive right into it. And other than that, I will talk to you soon, my friend. Take care.